Good afternoon, Saints. This is your friend, one Pilgrim. And I'm coming to you today on Sunday afternoon, February the 13th, 2022. And today we have a little bit more of a Muse than a Bible study. Something pertinent, I hope. We're going to muse a little bit about who was St. Valentine and why we celebrate Valentine's Day. See, as it turns out, there are a few possible origins and many stories surrounding Valentine's Day, which we nowadays celebrate with cards, flowers, chocolates, and such, as a day of the heart of eros or erotic love. It did not start out this way. It started out as agape love, as you'll see, and as a refusal of one man to allow the government to override the teachings of the Bible, pertinent to today. Specifically in this instance, regarding Valentine's Day, about marriage. So let's take a short look at a couple of the more fascinating backstories that I found, and then we'll spend some time with the origin story that I believe is closest to the truth. By the way, I was on another track for a Muse, which we'll get to later, but hat tip to Pastor Joe D'Amico from this morning at church for piquing my interest and sending me down the rabbit hole that I now share with you. Anyway, first, let's look at maybe the most outlandish theory, or at least the one most likely to make your jaw drop, surrounding the origins of Valentine's Day. Now, February 14th was designated a Catholic holy day or holiday by Pope Gelasius I in order to replace the ancient Roman festival Lupercalia, a celebration of fertility dedicated to the Roman god of agriculture, Faunus, and to the Roman founders Romulus and Remus. You know, agriculture, spring, crops, growing. Anyway, this was like many feasts that the Romans had. I think pagan Romans, not Christianity. This was a feast of Roman debauchery. It took place from February 13th through 15th, and it involved a ritual where an order of Roman priests, pagan priests, sacrificed a goat and a dog, and then ran naked through the streets, gently slapping women with the blood-soaked hides of the sacrificed animals. Yes, they did. Yes, it's true. The young women would actually line up for the men to slap them with the hides because they believed that this promoted fertility. Following this flagellation was a tradition in which the men selected women's names at random from a jar, and this would decide who would remain together for the next year. Or if they happened to fall in love while they were together for that year, then they'd marry and stay together. Just telling you what I found. This is what Pope Gelasius I muddled up in the 5th century. He was trying to do a good thing by combining Valentine's Day, creating Valentine's Day, combining it with Lupercalia in an attempt to expel and end that pagan ritual. By then, though, the ritual was actually more of a theatrical interpretation of what it had once been. Anyway, as one historian, Noel Lenski, from the University of Colorado states, it was little more than a drunken revelry by then. The Christians basically just put clothes back on it, instead of the naked men running through town with the hides of the goats and the dogs. Okay. But that didn't stop it from being a day of fertility. And I guess you'd call that, it says here, fertility and love. His quote, not mine. All right. So there's your most jaw-dropping theory about how the holiday was designated. But that doesn't discount our theory about its actual origin, which we'll get to. But it does show how, through the ages, religion tried to end pagan practices by incorporating them into Christian religion. Another story, maybe not about origination, but about how it became solidified. Valentine's Day became, or the Valentine's feast days became solidified as a holiday of romantic love rather than a true agape love it originally represented. Maybe when the poet Geoffrey Chaucer linked romantic love with St. Valentine for the first time in his 14th century poem, The Parliament of Fools. Now, in this 1375 poem, Chaucer described the 14th of February as the day that birds found their mates, and generally speaking, birds mate for life. And I quote from his work. For this was sent on St. Valentine's Day, when every fowl, meaning bird of course, cometh there to choose his mate. So, in defense of this theory about how the actual record it became a romantic love, there is no actual record of the day being called Valentine's Day before Chaucer's poem, where he mentions it in 1375. At least that is believed to be the first time that the Feast of St. Valentine's was linked to romantic love, progressing into our modern era. So, long way around, a couple stories first. How did Valentine's Day actually originate? There are a few stories. It seems it's muddled in history. Here's the story that I believe is the most factual, has the most factual written history to back it up. St. Valentine was a doctor who became a priest. He lived in Italy during the 3rd century AD and was a priest of Rome. His early life isn't much known, including when he was born. Written history actually picks up Valentine's story after he began working as a priest. He became famous for marrying couples who were in love but couldn't get legally married in Rome during the reign of Emperor Claudius II because Claudius outlawed marriages. See, Claudius wanted to recruit lots of men to be soldiers in his army, and he thought that marriage would be an obstacle to recruiting new soldiers. He also wanted his existing soldiers to be kept from getting married because he thought that marriage would distract them from the work. Fear of using your life on the battlefield. How would your family survive? Your children, you interested in them rather than following orders and, going to some foreign country for Rome. Now, I never said Claudius had a good idea here. I'm just saying this was Claudius's idea. But Valentine, he said, in this case, the government was wrong and was going against biblical teaching about marriage. And so, Valentine goes about marrying soldiers and other young couples secretly. When Emperor Claudius discovered that Valentine was performing secret weddings, he had him captured, tortured, and jailed. Valentine, not to be stopped, used his time in jail to continue to reach out to people with the love that he said Christ gave him for others. Agape love. Now, Valentine was befriended eventually by his jailer, a man named Asterios, who became so impressed with Valentine's wisdom that he asked Valentine to help his daughter Julia with her lessons. You see, Julia was blind and needed someone to read material to her for her to learn it. Now, Valentine became friends with young Julia through his work with her when she came to visit him in jail. Not romantic love. She was a little girl. He was helping her. It wasn't romantic love. It was agape love, but they became friends through his work in teaching her. Now, Asterios, the jailer, was also one of the men who would have been on the panel to judge Valentine in line with Roman law at the time. The emperor, of course, could override that, which he eventually did. But he would have been on the panel of people who would have judged Valentine when his case had come up. So now one story told in Catholic circles, but historically I could not verify it anywhere. So is it true, this part? I don't know, but it is interesting, thus I include it. And that story is that Valentine prayed with and healed the young girl of her blindness. And that with that act, that Asterios himself and his whole family became Christians as a result. Now, it's also said that Claudius also came to like Valentine. He even offered to pardon Valentine and to set him free if Valentine would just renounce his Christian faith and agree to worship the Roman gods. Well, it didn't work out so well. Not only did Valentine refuse to leave his faith, he preached the gospel to Emperor Claudius, encouraging him to place his trust and his life in Jesus Christ. Good for him. Well, his faithful choice cost him his life. Emperor Claudius was so enraged at Valentine's response that he sentenced Valentine to die immediately by a 3-part execution of a beating, a stoning, and then finally decapitation. Now, before he was killed, Valentine wrote one last note to encourage Julia to stay close to Jesus and to thank her for being his friend. He signed the note, "From your Valentine." That note inspired people to begin writing their own loving messages to people on Valentine's feast day, February 14th, which is celebrated on the same day on which Valentine was martyred. So our hero, Valentine, was beaten, stoned, and beheaded per Claudius's orders on February 14th, the year 270. People who remembered his loving service to many young couples thus began celebrating his life, and he became to be regarded as a saint through whom God had worked to help people in miraculous ways. By 496, Pope Gelasius, who we discussed above, designated February 14th as Valentine's official feast day in an attempt to stop the pagan revelry holiday celebrated around the same time. So that's our story about how Valentine's Day originated, and a couple interesting stories around the history of Valentine's Day. But when did Valentine's Day become the commercial thing that we see today? Well, while it was around in the Middle Ages, it didn't become really popular until the early 19th century. And we're going to now, a huge amount of printed cards would be sold. Would be sold too regarding Valentine's Day. In 1913, Hallmark cards in Kansas City began mass producing specific Valentine's Day cards. Now, the first heart-shaped box of chocolates was introduced in 1861. It was created by Richard Cadbury, the son of Cadbury Chocolates founder John Cadbury, who had started packaging chocolates in fancy boxes to increase sales. his son Richard got an even better idea and introduced the first heart-shaped box of chocolates for Valentine's Day in 1861. And today, more than 36 million heart-shaped boxes of chocolates are sold every year. I guess it was a successful marketing campaign. Then you add to that the Hallmark cards, which there are over 25 million Valentine's Day cards sent out annually, and in the UK, and over 190 million in the US. So, why are roses associated with Valentine's Day? Roses have been a symbol of love since the early 1700s, when Charles II of Sweden brought the Persian poetical art known as the language of flowers to Europe. You can investigate that on your own. Too long a rabbit hole to go down. Throughout the 18th century, ladies loved their floral dictionaries, which listed the symbolic meanings of different flowers. And the red rose was to be the flower favored by Venus, the Roman goddess of love, and this therefore came to represent that. Now, why do we, not so much we adults, but kids, when they do it in school and everything, why do we sign Valentine's Day cards anonymously? Well, apart from the embarrassment, there was an actual tradition started by the Victorians. They thought it was bad luck to sign the cards with their actual names. Plus, they were very kind of tightly wound folks. You've all heard of the Victorian era. So, one last thing before I sign off and allow you to go and enjoy your Valentine's Day is where did Cupid come from? Ah, Cupid. That little winged baby boy often seen on Valentine's Day cards and paraphernalia. He's just another symbol. It's easy to understand why. If you go back to the Roman mythology, Cupid was the son of Venus, the goddess of love and beauty. And he was known for shooting arrows at both gods and humans, causing them to fall instantly in love with one another. Now, it is unclear in history exactly when Cupid was brought into the Valentine's Day story, but it is certainly clear why. So, there you have it. Just a short muse for your Valentine's Day. I hope you enjoyed some of the interesting stories. Certainly one is a jaw-dropper. And I hope you enjoy your Valentine's Day. God bless you. Hope to see you again soon. Working on some more muses. And perhaps during the week, maybe a few more promises of God or psalms to help you get you through your week. So this is one Pilgrim wishing you shalom and signing off. I'm out.